Today we're making the grandmother of all Thanksgiving dressings, recipe courtesy of a real Southern grandma. What makes this dressing special is it has white bread, cornbread, and buttermilk biscuits. The recipe makes a ton, but that's good because even when you're full, you won't be able to stop eating it. Let's get cooking. Our first step will be to dice celery and onion. We need about 2 cups of each. Those will be going into a pan with a ridiculous amount of butter, and after a little while we'll add some chopped parsley as well as some broth. We can use chicken broth, vegetable stock, anything along those lines. As always, ingredients and details are in the description. Let's get chopping. So our onions and celery have softened some, no sign of browning. That's great. To that, we are going to add the parsley. Along with about 15 ounces of, I've got chicken broth here. I use a lower sodium chicken broth. You can use vegetable broth or stock or kind of whatever works, whatever you prefer. You can definitely keep this completely vegetarian if you use vegetable stock and vegetable bouillon. All right, so we're going to give that another stir. We're going to turn our heat to medium-low, and we're going to cover and let that cook for about another 5 minutes just to let things soften a bit more and mellow. While that's cooking, we're going to move over to our bread and cornbread and biscuits and get that stuff crumbled and mixed together. All right, so while our celery and onion and parsley mixture is softening just a little bit more, we're going to go ahead and get the bread crumbled and mixed together. I've got 12 slices of white bread, crust removed. I've already cubed or torn those into pieces. This, by the way, is a great step for kids to help with crumbling or tearing bread. We have 12 buttermilk biscuits and a skillet. The original recipe says a skillet of cornbread. This is an 8x8 batch of cornbread. That one, I made the biscuits and the cornbread, bought the bread. You can use store-bought, homemade, any combination. If you're working on doing this ahead, these are great things to do ahead and just have tucked in the freezer, you know, a batch of biscuits, a slab of cornbread, and the bread is honestly just bread that my family refers to it as the bread collection, that I have bits of leftover stale bread in the back of the refrigerator for things like this, making croutons, making breadcrumbs, etc. So we're going to keep crumbling. You'll notice I have another bowl back here. This makes a lot of dressing, and I always wind up needing the backup bowl. So I'm going to crumble about half of my biscuits into one bowl and half into the other, so my proportions are roughly equal. All right, so I've got my biscuits, cornbread, and bread crumbled into these bowls. We're going to go ahead and give that a quick mix just to make sure. Well, lost a bit. Just to make sure everything is mixed around. We don't have a whole bunch of cornbread just sitting at the top or something. All right. Now we're going to start adding our seasonings. Oh, by the way, I did go ahead and turn off the celery and onions and turn on my oven to 325. Okay, next up, we are going to add flavoring to this. We're going to add about a teaspoon of, I use vegetable bouillon. You can use chicken, turkey, whatever you prefer. 2 eggs. I'm going to crack these in here and mix the vegetable bouillon into them. All right, and then we're going to add, stir that in. And we also have about a teaspoon of kosher salt, half a teaspoon of freshly ground black pepper, and about half a teaspoon of seasoning salt. All right, so we've got our eggs and our bouillon, those seasonings, and we also are going to add another 30 ounces of chicken broth. Again, I'm using lower sodium chicken broth. I'm going to add about half of this container here. You can do vegetable broth, you can use stock, you can use bouillon and water and mix that up. All right, we're going to do about half in each. We will mix all these together anyhow. We just want to keep this relatively even. All right, so there that goes. All right, and then to each of these, we're going to add a sprinkle of seasoning. All right, and our egg mixture, about half in each. Make sure I get all of that bouillon out of there. I can kind of take a scoop of bread from each of these. All right, now we're gonna give that a stir with this fork. This one as well. And then we're going to add in our celery and onions. All right, so we have our celery and onion with the parsley nice and softened, nothing got browned. Just enough time to let those flavors mingle together. So we're going to put about half this in each bowl, and then we're going to mix everything together. All right. Good stir. And when it's all mixed together, this is about how it'll look. All right, no pockets of really dry bread or biscuit in there. Things relatively evenly mixed together. You don't have to be super thorough, just want to make sure it's, you know, fairly even. All right, so now we're going to put these in 2 pans. So we'll do a 9 by 13 casserole and then another 8 by 8. This, by the way, we could stop at this point and freeze this, refrigerate it for no more than a day, or freeze it and then thaw it and bake it from there, but we're gonna go ahead and bake this now. I do put a little nonstick spray in my pans before I dressing it. All right, so we're gonna add some of each bowl to each pan. That way we know everything's, you know, mixed in pretty well. All right. All right, we're going to smooth the tops just a little bit. We will cover each pan with foil, and for the first hour, we're going to bake these at 325. For the first hour, we'll have them covered in foil. They'll probably take another hour and a half after that, but we will see. All right, to the oven. So we're covered in foil. Since these are glass pans, I do set them onto a dark cookie sheet to help with more even baking. We'll check on these in an hour. Our dressing's been in the oven for about 2.5 hours. We're gonna go ahead and take this out. You see nice browned edges here and little bits of brown at the top. We're gonna take a look in the center and make sure that it is cooked to the consistency we're looking for. If you want a drier stuffing, you can, or dressing, you can leave it in the oven for longer. If you'd like something that's a little bit softer, obviously come out, take it out of the oven earlier. And this is good. We're gonna let that rest and we'll take a taste. Our dressing is finished. We popped it back into the oven for 15 minutes just to crisp up. And now it's time to enjoy. Delicious. We hope you and your Thanksgiving guests love this as much as we do. Don't forget to check back every Friday for a new recipe.